Have you ever wondered what would happen if the quietest person in the room turned out to be the only one who could save everyone? The 35th floor of Brighton Capital gleamed with the kind of wealth that made people like Antaram Carter disappear. Glass walls stretched toward a gray November sky. Marble floors reflected executives who never noticed the shy girl pushing a cleaning cart through their world. She'd worked these halls for 2 years, invisible to everyone, except Mr. Howard, the veteran security guard, who sometimes offered a kind nod. That Tuesday morning started like every other, until urgent voices shattered the usual corporate hum. Antaram paused near the executive lobby, her fingers tightening around the mop handle. A police dog strained against its leash muscles, coiled tight, focused on something near the glass entrance. Officers shouted commands. Executives stumbled backward. Fear moved through the crowd like electricity. The shy girl knew she should look away, keep moving, stay invisible. But her brother's voice whispered from somewhere deep in memory. When you see someone afraid, be the calm they need. The police dog lunged. Someone screamed. Without thinking, Antaram's hands moved, swift, deliberate, speaking a language the room had never witnessed. The German shepherd froze instantly. Complete stillness. 37 people stopped breathing. This heartwarming moment, a shy girl communicating with a police dog using only her hands, would change everything. But only one man understood what he'd just seen. CEO Leo Reed stood frozen, his composed expression cracking. He stared at the woman in the cleaning uniform, whose silent gesture had done the impossible. What else have we been missing? Silence held for 3 heartbeats before chaos returned. Security rushing forward, the handler grabbing the leash, executives murmuring confusion. Antaram pressed herself against the wall, trying to vanish again. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She could feel dozens of eyes on her now, a sensation that made her skin prickle with discomfort. What just happened? Someone whispered. Did she just control that dog? Who is she? Mr. Howard appeared beside her weathered face, unreadable. You all right, Miss Carter? She nodded, but her hands trembled. She'd signed instinctively. Stay still. The command her brother Danny practiced with their neighbor's service dog back when he still believed the world would make space for someone like him. She could still see Danny's face lighting up whenever the dog responded, that pure joy of being understood without words. Leo Reed moved through the crowd with purpose. Up close, he was taller than she'd imagined, sharp features, the composure of someone who made $1,000 decisions before breakfast. He stopped directly in front of her. For the first time in 2 years, someone at Brighton Capital truly looked at Antaram. Who taught you that? His voice was measured, but curiosity flickered beneath. My brother taught me. The words barely reached him. He was deaf. Was, past tense, the word that still felt like betrayal. Leo studied her for a long moment, his gray eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her want to look away. But something kept her gaze steady. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the faint echo of Danny's voice telling her she mattered. What's your name? Antaram Carter. Miss Carter, I need to speak with you. 30 minutes. My office. The room stirred with whispers. Executives exchanged glances. This wasn't how things worked at Brighton Capital. Cleaners didn't get summoned to the CEO's office. But before anyone could object, Chloe Anderson swept in, building manager, expensive blazer smile, like cut glass. Mr. Reed, I apologize for this disruption. I'll ensure our maintenance staff understands security protocols better. She shot Antaram a look sharp enough to draw blood. We can't have untrained personnel interfering with police operations. Leo's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She didn't interfere. She communicated. There's a difference. He turned back to Antarum, dismissing Chloe without another word. 30 minutes, Miss Carter. Mr. Howard's eyes crinkled with quiet pride. Chloe's face flushed with barely concealed anger, and Antarum's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. As Antarum pushed her cart back toward the service corridor, Mr. Howard fell into step beside her. "You did good back there," he said quietly. "I probably shouldn't have. You did exactly what needed doing." He paused, lowering his voice. "I've been watching people in this building for 15 years, Miss Carter. Most of them look right through folks like us. But you see things. You pay attention. That's a gift." "It doesn't feel like a gift." "Gifts rarely do at first." He smiled gently. "Your brother would be proud." The words hit her like a physical thing. She blinked back sudden tears. "You didn't know him." "No, but I know you. And anyone who raised someone as kind as you must have been pretty special themselves." Antarum had to turn away before the tears could fall. 30 minutes later, she stood in an office that belonged to a different universe, floor-to-ceiling windows, walls, displaying achievements she couldn't pronounce. Leo sat behind his desk, watching her with unsettling intensity. She noticed his hands were clasped tightly together, knuckles slightly white. He was nervous too, she realized. The thought was oddly comforting. "You interfered with a police procedure," he said carefully. "If that police dog had been responding to an actual threat, your action could have created disaster." "I know." She kept her gaze on the floor. "I'm sorry. I just didn't want anyone hurt." "Why did you think the dog would listen to you?" The question surprised her. She'd expected reprimand, maybe termination, not curiosity. I grew up translating the world for my brother. Learning to read body language, understanding fear responses, recognizing when someone or something was overwhelmed instead of aggressive. Rex looked scared, not angry. Leo leaned forward slightly. You could tell the difference. His ears were back, but his tail wasn't rigid. His eyes kept darting around. He was reacting to too much stimulus, not a specific threat. She finally looked up. "I just thought if I could give him something clear to focus on, one simple command, he might settle. And you chose sign language because it's quiet, calm. Everyone else was shouting. I thought maybe silence would feel safer to him." Leo sat back, something shifting in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "Your brother, what happened to him?" The question pierced through her carefully maintained walls. She hadn't discussed Danny in 3 years, not since the intersection. The truck driver who never saw him, the warning she wasn't there to give. "Car accident. He was 17. Her voice fractured. "I was supposed to meet him after school. I was late." "That wasn't your fault. He couldn't hear the horn warning him." She swallowed hard. "If I'd been there, I could have signed to him, pulled him back. Something." The silence between them felt sacred somehow. Leo's expression shifted, recognition, understanding. The look of someone who carried similar weight. "I lost my father when I was 12, he said quietly. "Office fire. I convinced myself that if I'd called him that morning, kept him talking long enough, he'd have missed the meeting." He paused, and she saw his hands unclench slowly. "Guilt lies, Miss Carter. It tells you that you controlled more than you did, that you had power over things that were never in your hands." Something loosened in Antarum's chest. For the first time in years, she felt like someone truly understood. The company's expanding security partnerships. Leo continued shifting to business, though his tone remained gentle. "Rex, the police dog you saw, will be featured in our corporate safety demonstration next week. He responds to you." He met her eyes directly. I want you there as handler assistant. Antaram blinked hard. I clean offices. You communicate in ways others can't. That's more valuable than most people's degrees. He leaned forward. This is an inspirational opportunity, Miss Carter. Don't let titles limit what you're capable of. She wanted to believe him, but 3 years of invisibility had taught her that hope could hurt more than disappointment. I'll think about it, she whispered. Don't think too long. Sometimes we have to trust ourselves before we're ready. But what happens when people start watching someone who spent years being invisible? Word spread through Brighton Capital like wildfire. The janitor who controlled a police dog, CEO's new assistant. Who does she think she is? Chloe cornered Antaram in the supply closet that afternoon, perfume overwhelming in the cramped space. Let me be clear. You're out of your depth. Leo's trying to appear progressive, but people like you don't belong in positions like this. You'll humiliate yourself and embarrass him. Antaram stayed silent. She'd learned that silence could be armor. I've worked here for 6 years. Chloe continued, her voice dropping to something colder. I've earned every promotion, fought for every recognition. And you think one lucky moment with a dog entitles you to special treatment. She stepped closer. Stay where you belong or you'll regret it. After Chloe left, Antaram stood alone in the closet for a full minute, breathing in the smell of cleaning supplies and defeat. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but she knew it was Mr. Howard. Real strength doesn't announce itself. It just keeps showing up. That night, Antaram sat in her small apartment staring at Danny's photo. 12 years old, gap-toothed grin, hands frozen mid-sign, I love you. She pulled out the shoebox from under her bed, the one filled with his notebooks. Page after page of observations about animals' communication trust. His handwriting was messy, enthusiastic, full of life. She traced her fingers over one entry, dogs don't lie with their bodies. People should learn from them. She cried then, the kind of tears that tasted like fear mixed with something fragile that might have been hope. The demonstration arrived Thursday morning. Brighton Capital's lobby transformed into a showcase. Investors, board members, potential partners. Rex sat at attention, professional and imposing. Leo stood at the podium explaining corporate security's future, and Antaram stood to the side, her uniform replaced by borrowed business clothes that didn't quite fit. She felt exposed, fraudulent. She'd barely slept the night before, running through signs in her mind, reminding herself how Danny used to calm their neighbor's dog when storms frightened him. I'd like to introduce someone who will demonstrate the precision of human-animal communication in high-pressure environments. Leo gestured toward her. Antaram Carter. Polite applause rippled through skeptical faces. Chloe watched from the back, arms crossed tight, a smile playing at her lips that made Antaram's stomach turn. Antaram approached the police dog on shaking legs. Rex's ears perked. She could feel the weight of every eye in the room. Her hands felt clumsy, uncertain. What if she'd imagined their connection? What if he didn't respond? She steadied her breath, lifted her hands and signed friend. The police dog's tail wagged once. Charmed laughter filled the room. Relief flooded through her. Then everything shattered. Rex's demeanor changed instantly, ears flattened. A low growl built in his throat, eyes locked on Antaram with sudden aggression. The handler reached for the leash, but the police dog lunged forward, barking viciously. Antaram stumbled backward, her mind racing. What did I do wrong? What changed? The crowd gasped in shock. Leo stepped forward, alarm replacing confidence. Get that animal under control, someone shouted. Chloe's voice cut through panic. I warned you she wasn't qualified. This is exactly the disaster I predicted." But Antarum wasn't listening. Her mind raced to Danny's notebook's pages about animal behavior, anxiety responses, trust signals. Years watching him work with their neighbor's dog taught her that aggression often masked pain or fear. She thought about the day Danny had been bitten trying to help a stray, how he'd explained afterward that the dog wasn't mean, just terrified. "Fear looks like anger when you're trapped," he'd signed to her. "But if you show them you understand, sometimes they remember how to trust." She dropped to one knee, making herself smaller, non-threatening. Her heart hammered, but her hands steadied. She signed slowly, deliberately. "Trust me. I understand." Rex's growling faltered. His head tilted slightly, confusion replacing aggression. She signed again. "Friend, you're safe. I see you." The police dog took one cautious step forward, then another, and then inexplicably he lowered himself to the ground at her feet, massive head resting on her shoe. His breathing slowed, his body relaxed. The room exploded in genuine applause. Investors stood. Board members nodded approval. Leo's expression shifted from concern to profound respect, something that looked almost like awe. In the back, Chloe's face drained of color. Her smile vanished. She slipped out the side door, her exit unnoticed by everyone except Mr. Howard, who watched her go with narrowed eyes. "That was extraordinary," Leo said afterward, his usual composure cracked by genuine amazement. "What made you approach him differently? Most people would have backed away." "My brother taught me that fear and anger usually signal something's wrong inside, not that someone's dangerous." Antaram's voice held new steadiness. Rex wasn't attacking. He was frightened. Something scared him suddenly. "But what?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But animals don't change like that without reason." Something triggered him. Leo studied her carefully. "You have a rare gift, Miss Carter. Most people spend careers learning to read situations. You read hearts." For the first time in 3 years, Antarum felt genuinely seen, truly, completely acknowledged. This heartwarming recognition felt almost too large to hold, but visibility, she would learn, cast unexpected shadows. Later that afternoon, Mr. Howard pulled her aside. "That wasn't right," he said quietly. "What do you mean? I've worked with K9 units. Rex's reaction wasn't natural. Dogs don't turn like that without cause." He glanced around, lowering his voice. "I'm going to review the footage. Something's not adding up." The demonstration's success rippled outward quickly. By Friday, Brighton Capital secured a multi-million-dollar security contract. Leo announced company bonuses, executives celebrated loudly, and Antaram returned to her cart, her routine, her familiar invisibility, except now people nodded when she passed. Small acknowledgments, tiny shifts in the foundation. Chloe watched from her office, jaw clenched, mind calculating. She'd been passed over for promotion 3 times, reprimanded for failed projects, and now a cleaner received recognition that should have been hers. She spent the weekend reviewing security footage, searching for anything, any angle she could reshape. She found it a split-second shot of Antaram's hand near Rex's collar during the initial approach. Before the calming, before the trust. Perfect. Monday morning, Chloe edited the footage carefully. Strategic cuts, calculated angles. The result made Antaram appear to have provoked the police dog's aggression, deliberately manufacturing drama to look heroic. She emailed it to Leo with precise wording. "Sir, I hate bringing this forward, but I believe we've been deceived." Leo summoned Antaram to his office that afternoon. His expression revealed nothing. "Did you manipulate that situation?" he asked without preamble. Antaram's stomach dropped. What do you mean? He turned his laptop toward her. The doctored footage played her hand near the collar. Rex's sudden reaction timing edited to suggest she'd caused it. This can't be real, she whispered. I would never harm an animal or endanger people. Chloe filed a formal complaint. She claims you staged the incident for personal advancement. That's completely false. Tears burned, but she held them back. Why would I risk anyone's safety? Why would I hurt a police dog? Leo's jaw tightened. I want to believe you, Miss Carter, but this footage can be manipulated. Mr. Howard's voice came from the doorway. Neither had heard him enter. With respect, Mr. Reed, I've worked security 40 years. I recognize altered evidence. Leo looked between them. You're suggesting Chloe fabricated this. I'm suggesting you check original timestamps and server logs. Howard's voice held steel. And I'm reminding you that character reveals itself in crisis. You've witnessed Miss Carter's character firsthand. But Leo's mind spun with liability, concerns potential lawsuits, reputation risks, the protective walls he'd built around himself and his company. Miss Carter, until we investigate fully, I'm suspending your participation in company events. Return to your regular position. You'll believe edited footage over what you witnessed yourself. Her voice cracked. I'm being cautious, he said, but even he heard the hollow ring. Antaram stood slowly, like someone trying not to break apart. Trust is fragile. I learned that from my brother. He trusted the world would accommodate him. It rarely did. She met Leo's eyes. I thought maybe you were different. She left before the tears could fall. For 2 days, Antaram moved through Brighton Capital like a ghost again. Back to invisible. Back to dismissed. Chloe passed her in hallways wearing triumphant smiles. Leo avoided floors where she worked. But Mr. Howard observed and waited. And Wednesday morning, Rex started barking frantically in the parking garage, urgent, insistent the alert-trained dogs give when detecting serious threats. Howard followed the sound. The police dog stood beside a black sedan, scratching the trunk, his detection training fully engaged. Howard called security, reviewed cameras, and there on Tuesday night's footage he discovered it, Chloe alone in the garage, placing something in the trunk, then removing it, then checking her phone with satisfied expression. She'd planted prohibited substances, intending to frame Antaram with something far worse than sabotage. She'd removed it when fear overtook ambition. But Rex, trained for detection, remembered the scent. Howard's hands shook as he compiled evidence. Original demonstration footage, parking garage timestamps, employment records showing Chloe's repeated infractions and desperate ambition. He brought everything to Leo. Leo sat in his office watching the unedited footage. Antaram's genuine approach. Rex's authentic response. The manipulation now glaringly obvious. Shame burned in his throat. He'd let trauma make him paranoid. Let fear of vulnerability override judgment. Let prejudice about a cleaning uniform cloud what his own eyes had witnessed. Where is she? He asked Howard. Bus station. Bought a Philadelphia ticket this morning. Shift ended an hour ago. She didn't return. Leo was moving before Howard finished speaking. He found her on a bench, single backpack at her feet, staring at the departure board like it held answers to unasked questions. Don't leave. Antaram looked up, startled. Leo stood there, suit rumpled, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen. You were right about everything, he said, sitting without invitation. About trust, about seeing people clearly, about all of it. He paused. Chloe's been arrested. The evidence she manufactured, all of it, collapsed. Howard discovered footage of her planting something far worse to frame you. Antarum remained silent. You saved more than lives last week, Leo continued softly. You restored my faith that genuinely good people still exist, and I repaid you by doubting the most honest person I've encountered in years. Faith doesn't need me, she whispered. Maybe not, but I do. He looked at her fully, not as an employee, not as a project, as proof that some people still lead with kindness instead of calculation. A tear slipped down her cheek. I'm exhausted from being invisible, but being seen terrifies me. I understand. His voice cracked. After my father died, I made myself impenetrable. Figured I couldn't hurt if I never let anyone close. Couldn't lose what I never valued. But that's not strength. That's just slow suffocation. They sat quietly, two people who'd built walls for different reasons, recognizing identical loneliness in each other. Come back, Leo said finally. Not to clean, to lead. I want to create an inclusion program, accessibility training, sign language classes, visibility for people the world overlooks. I want you to run it. Antarum searched his face for deception, for pity, for anything false. She found only sincerity. Why me? Because quiet voices often speak the loudest truth, and I'm tired of only hearing the loud ones. This inspirational moment, being asked, not just to return but to lead, felt almost too significant to trust. Sometimes rescue isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's just someone asking you to stay. Antarum returned to Brighton Capital the next morning. Not through the service entrance, but through the main lobby where Mr. Howard stood waiting with a smile that communicated, "I told you so," without words. Leo had already initiated changes. Chloe's termination was announced with language about ethical violations and evidence tampering. A company-wide memo introduced the Quiet Hands Project, an initiative positioning Brighton Capital as a leader in workplace accessibility. And Antarum, still adjusting to her new reality, found herself in an actual office, small but windowed, designing programs she'd never imagined having authority to create. The first program, sign language training for executive leadership. Leo attended every session learning signs with dedication usually reserved for quarterly earnings. His hands fumbled at first, letters tangling together, but he persisted. "Chiquam, why are you really doing this?" Antarum asked one afternoon as he struggled with the sign for understanding. "Because I missed too much by not paying attention," he said simply. "And I refuse to miss any more." The second initiative paired overlooked staff with senior leadership for mentorship. Mr. Howard became the first mentor his 40 years of quiet observation finally recognized as wisdom. He worked with younger security officers, teaching them that protection meant seeing people, not just monitoring threats. "Your brother would have appreciated this," Howard told Antarum one morning, "creating space for people like him." "He'd have been embarrassed by attention," she said with a bittersweet smile. "But he'd have valued the intention behind it." The third program meant most to Antarum, a scholarship fund for deaf youth pursuing service animal training, named the Daniel Carter Fellowship. Because some losses couldn't be undone, but they could be honored. They could create change that rippled forward into futures her brother would never see. 6 weeks after the demonstration, Antarum stood in the conference room where she'd once watched people plan futures she'd never been invited to imagine. Now she stood at the table's head, presenting the Quiet Hands Project to the board. Leo introduced her. "Most of us measure impact by volume, biggest deals, loudest achievements, highest returns. But the person who's created the most meaningful change at Brighton Capital this year did it quietly. With gestures instead of speeches. with presence instead of performance. He gestured toward her. "Miss Carter." She stepped forward, hands trembling slightly. A room full of executives watched, but this time their attention felt different. Not like scrutiny, like invitation. "When my brother died," she began, voice soft but clear, "I believed my job was staying small, not occupying space, apologizing for existing." She paused. "But I've learned that making yourself small doesn't protect you. It just makes you disappear." The room held perfect silence. The Quiet Hands Project isn't charity. It's recognition. Recognizing that value doesn't always speak first in meetings. That leadership doesn't always wear expensive suits. That the most important conversations sometimes happen without any sound at all. She clicked to the next slide, photos of Rex wearing his training vest, signing students, Howard mentoring young officers. "We've trained 47 employees in basic sign language, created partnerships with 3 deaf advocacy organizations. We've proven that accessibility isn't burden, it's advantage. Because companies listening to only one kind of voice miss everything else." When she finished, the board didn't just approve the program, they tripled its funding. As people departed, Leo approached. "You did it." "We did it together." She smiled, genuinely, reaching her eyes. "Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Thank you for showing me what I'd stopped looking for." They stood there, 2 people who'd saved each other differently, understanding that redemption rarely resembled movies. It looked like showing up. It looked like trying again. It looked like trust rebuilt one careful moment at a time. And sometimes rescue was just having someone believe your hands spoke truth. 3 months later, Brighton Capital hosted the inaugural Quiet Hands Project graduation ceremony. 50 employees completed advanced sign language certification. 12 companies requested program replication. And Rex, semi-retired from active duty, served as the unofficial mascot. The ceremony took place in the same lobby where everything changed. Antaram stood at the podium, no longer nervous, no longer trying to shrink. She'd learned that visibility wasn't something to fear. It was something to steward thoughtfully. "My brother Danny used to say the world wasn't built for people like him," she told the gathered crowd. He was right, but he also believed that if enough people cared, we could rebuild it. One sign at a time, one conversation at a time, one choice to see instead of overlook. She paused, steadying herself. "I spent 3 years believing I'd failed him. That if I'd been there, been faster, been better, he'd still be alive. But grief taught me something unexpected. It taught me that we honor people we've lost, not by achieving perfection, but by becoming present. By showing up for others the way we wish we could have shown up for them." Leo watched from the side, the police dog sitting calmly beside him. Rex's head rested against Leo's leg. Partnership, trust, the kind of bond requiring no words. "So this program isn't really about sign language," Antaram continued. "It's about choosing to understand, choosing to make space, choosing to believe that everyone, regardless of how they communicate, what they wear, or where they started, deserves genuine recognition." She looked at Mr. Howard, who nodded with fatherly pride, at Leo, who signed "thank you" with newly confident hands. At faces in the crowd, janitors standing beside executives, security officers, next to board members, all learning the same language of respect. When Rex stopped that day, it wasn't because I was special. It was because I was willing to try, to communicate in the language he understood, instead of forcing him into mine. She smiled warmly. "That's the lesson. Not everyone will speak your language. But if you're willing to learn theirs even just a little, you might be surprised by what changes." The room erupted in applause, not polite obligation, but genuine celebration that sounded like permission, possibility, pride. After the ceremony, Antaram found herself at the window overlooking the city, where she'd once felt impossibly small. Thinking about him, Leo appeared beside her. "Always," she said. "But now it feels different. Less like drowning, more like remembering with love." He'd be proud of the shy girl who found her voice. "I hope so." She turned to him. "Thank you for taking a chance on someone society teaches you to overlook. Thank you for showing me that what someone wears was never what mattered. It was what I chose to see or refused to see underneath it."